a startup and it's make or break for the startup. And if you don't deliver, then it's the end of the startup. I understand that people are stressed, and that stress is definitely going to bleed down to the people actually doing the work. So it's really dependent on your environment. Plus also sometimes what I forget to say, in the culture. I work in the Netherlands. I work in Europe. I've never worked in Asia. I've never worked in North America, South America. I know those cultures are very, very different. The biggest example I have is I love anime. I love everything Japan. And I know the working culture there is horrid. So I would love to live there. I would love to copy paste my life and live there. But the work dynamic would just be terrible. I see people hopping on the train. I was there for a month last year. I saw people hopping on the train. They were already sleeping on the train. Their train stop is there. They just wake up in a panic and they rush out of the train. Yeah, you don't want to be that. But that's the cultural part that could be different. Which makes it hard to fix. Because my default kind of problem-solving mindset is take yourself out of that situation. But the hiring market is not great. Especially if it's a cultural difference, then anywhere else in the organizations might be kind of similar, the organizations around you. So what can you then do? My advice would be to talk about it. I don't know how many people on purpose actually put on pressure. I've never been in that situation, but I would want to understand where that is coming from. And if you can have a conversation and say, well, this pressure that you're putting on the team, or specifically on me as an engineer, is actually demotivating me, is actually distracting me from my work, is making me lose sleep. All of those are not going to make you happy. And we know that developer happiness equals developer productivity. If you're happy at your work, then typically you are more productive. So that's the conversation I would have. That's the advice I have. Next one. For early career engineers in the AI era, how should they balance learning fundamentals, building real projects, and using AI coding tools without becoming overly dependent on them? First principles thinking. So you can use a tool, you can be effective with a tool. It's really fun. You can get the feeling of productivity is really there. Even dopamine. I've heard people lose sleep because of the tools that they have available or the credits they have available on a monthly basis, on a weekly basis, sometimes even in the span of a few hours, for example, with Claude Code, and they want to maximize their usage. That's the period we are in now. So you can learn how to be effective with a tool, but if the tool changes, you're kind of screwed. But the underlying principles of what is a model, how does that turn into an agent? So an agent loop, what does an agent actually use in terms of tool calls and skills and memory management? And when you have an interaction with an agent, where does that live on your machine? And can you learn from those interactions? Can you codify behavior instead of trying to steer the agent to do what you think it needs to do out of the box? But how can you codify that behavior so the next time it actually does that out of the box, out of the get-go? Then you've orchestrated your agent engineering workflow. And that's right now a skill that is very fresh, that is very new. There's many YouTube videos on there to inspire you on how to do things. And then I would say experiment. So build it up from the foundation, try to understand those topics in and of its own, and start creating. The biggest benefit right now is that everyone is a builder, but what you build is still up to you. So my advice, I've been building really cool projects, and before AI and agents, I hadn't really done so. This time investment that I had in my mind, if I want to build this, it's going to take X amount of evenings and X amount of time. And I love podcasting, I love watching anime and all of my other hundreds of hobbies, as well as just regular work, which I also enjoy doing. I just never prioritized it. But now with agents, in one day, I get time from the organization to just do a hackathon or innovation. I can build little projects and all of a sudden they're up and running. One of the latest things I did was I built kind of an agent orchestration, agentic engineering workflow that you open Claude Code. There's a set of skills and a set of kind of default coding templates available. And you just say, I want a game. I want an RPG. I'm thinking about having HP and mana and swords and magical items, and I want to fight goblins and bosses at the end of the round. There's going to be a boss. Create me a game. And whatever you come up with, it will create a game for you in kind of a retro style, because I chose that style because I like that style. And it does it. And I've done it with myself. I've created 5 games with it. I've created 3 games for my little brothers with it. I gave it to my friends and I was like, whatever you do, speech to text, talk about a game that you want to create. And people made the most creative games. It was hilarious. And they were very amazed that it works out of the box. Small project. If I were to build that I don't think it was possible pre-agents because there's kind of a non-deterministic part. English is like the programming language, but then in the end it creates the game. And it's a really cool project. I love gaming. I love kind of retro style. I love enabling people and not just building the thing, but having other people build it. And then the joy of building becomes the thing. Like I could have built a game, but I took it one step beyond. And now I have a thing that builds games and everyone can now build games. So that's an example of a project that I built. And it really says a lot about me. It's now available on GitHub. Check it out if you want. It's not perfect. It's definitely like a very much MVP. I have on a branch another redesign, which I'm not really happy with, which I then paused. But these are projects that you can kick off. You can think of, okay, how do I build this? You can do that even multiple times and figure out how to get to the right version through any of your orchestration that you have put in place. And those are really great learning examples. I feel like many organizations are trying to figure that out, but then on scale, in production, for features, for systems that have been live for many, many years already. But these tiny projects, they will make a difference in the conversations that you will have with them because your experience is very relevant for what they're trying to do. And if their engineers don't get the time to experiment in the first place, then this is where, regardless on your level of career, you can make a difference. And I truly believe that, especially nowadays, this kind of way of working, it might change slightly. I do think the fundamentals will stay. And although it might be a bubble from a financial standpoint, in the last episode, my guest said the internet was also a bubble. And the internet is here to stay. I also feel like AI and agents, in whatever form it's going to have in the future, it will be here to stay. It's maybe not going to be Anthropic. It's maybe not going to be OpenAI. It might not even be the titans of Google, Microsoft, and even Meta. Or I know Amazon is also making models. Never heard of those before, but they are there. Might not be any of those, but I do think the technology is here to stay. So leverage that. Learn from a first principles kind of thinking, fundamental level. Start building. Start experiencing and experimenting. That's my advice. But I'm also very pragmatic, practical oriented. I love doing hands-on things rather than thinking of theory, although I do like theorizing. Will AI ever get good at distributed systems? So there's a nuance in there. Definitely you think then AI is not great at distributed systems. And I haven't really worked in a distributed systems environment as of recently, but I can imagine that it has a few components why it's not good currently. So context is scattered. That's one. Likely it's easy to follow happy paths. It's not as easy to follow paths that are not happy. Next token prediction is usually a typical case. Distributed systems are, I would say, more atypical, quite specific for an environment and a level of scale and complexity.